Well, I'm going to show how to go from a series of photographs, in this case some photographs of a sofa, uh, just taken kind of in a couple passes, 180 degrees across the front, various views as high and low as possible. Not very many of them, and I've got them converted down to 1500 pixels across resolution, so it doesn't take a lot of resolution either. I'm going to turn this into a 3D file in that we can use in Blender here. And there's the couch. This is the raw mesh that was imported, and it's got a lot of other stuff around it that I'm not going to want, but Blender will let you clean this up pretty easily, and plus you can do other things with it once it's in Blender. So it used to be able to do this with Autodesk's 123D Catch, or Catch 123D, whatever they called it. They don't really support it anymore. They stopped the web app interface for it, and the hard the desktop app is not really working. It doesn't let you log in. It's just got all sorts of problems, so gave up on it. So found another way to do it using really three different programs. They're all free. Some of them aren't necessarily for commercial use, but the first one is called VisualSFM, written by this person here, ChangChang Wu, and it takes the photos and generates a point cloud. And then there is this cmpmvs, which will another program written here by Michal Jancosek that will take the output from VisualSFM and convert it into some actual mesh files that Blender can almost import. But then finally there is Meshlab, which will read the output from CMP MVS and then output a file that Blender can read. So it sounds like a long deal, but actually it goes pretty easily. Downloaded each one of these, and I have them in here in a tutorial section here. So first of all, we've just got this simple directory structure. It's just, I've got a thing called tutorial, and we're going to be working here in this subdirectory sofa that has these photos in it, and all these programs will write some extra information into this subdirectory and create a whole bunch of subdirectories off of this subdirectory that'll eventually have the mesh file in it. So we'll just get started here. First of all, you start VisualSFM, and there's a whole lot of buttons and things on here, but you really only need three of them. This button here, open multiple images, so we're going to do that. I'm going to pause this while I find these things. Okay, so I've navigated to that subdirectory. I'm going to select all the photos and just say open. And it's always got this big long status window over here. It tells you what it's doing and kind of when it's done. It also tells you how long it takes. So the next one is to hit the pair make matches button. Okay, got to pause again. Okay, sorry. This window didn't have the focus, so my tooltips weren't working. It's this one here, compute missing matches. So we hit that, and it's going off and it's doing a bunch of things. I'm going to pause it. It doesn't take long, but I'll pause it anyways. Come back in a minute. Okay, it just took about 37 seconds, but it's amazing how much stuff it cranks through when it goes through that step. So that's done. Now the next one is the next button over, which is compute 3D reconstruction. So we're going to do this, and it's generating this simple point cloud. Now that only took like 2 seconds, so that part's done. There's all sorts of things you can do with this stuff along the way here, but we're just trying to get to Blender. Now with this done, we go to this button, which is Run Dense Reconstruction. This is where you kind of branch off into two different methods of working, but this is the way we're going to do it here. You would just you can say save, and it'll go off and calculate a bunch of things, but we don't. We pull this down, and we're going to set up an input file for the cmpmvs, and we'll call it sofa tutorial. Okay, and if I can just jump over here, this is now my sofa subdirectory. It used to just have photos in it, but now it's got a bunch of the original photos plus matte and sift files in it, and no subdirectories off it yet. So we're going to go back over to here, sofa tutorial, and I will say save. Okay, and it's done what it needs to do, and you can see over here in this, now it's created a folder off of that subdirectory called sofa tutorial, and that thing has a 00 subdirectory, and it's got some other stuff, but here is this file right here, mvs.ini. This is the file that we need to feed into cmpmvs. So I've got the command line already running here with the CM ready to run the CMV. So what you can do is copy this path. Okay, go over to where start your command line, be in the subdirectory where cmpmvs.exe is. It's in here, and we're going to run it's cmpmvs.exe. And just in case you have spaces in the command line or in your path, put a double quote there, paste in, paste in that path, and go ahead and add in then the name of the file, mvs.ini. Close it with there. Now this is going to run this program, which will take a while, so I'll get it going, make sure it's working, and then I'll pause the video again. Okay, and it's going to go and do a lot of stuff. So I'm pausing now. So it's about 4 minutes into the calculations. I was just going to mention you can hear the fan on the GPU whining because this thing will use the GPU if you've got the right stuff set up. And I've just got an old NVIDIA 560, but it does have the CUDA. I think I've got 6.5 on it now, and there are notes in the online documents for these programs about what the requirements are. I think this one actually required that you had some Visual Studio C++ runtime files, either 2008 or possibly 2010 on your computer, and maybe the NVIDIA or the CUDA drivers and a few other things. But I happen to actually have all that. I had all that stuff already, so I didn't have to reinstall. But you'll find links to those files. Anyways, it's still calculating, so I'll pause it again. Okay, so that took about 15 minutes. So what was that? Probably 19 pictures at 1500 X resolution. It didn't. I mean, you could see taking 100 photos full resolution would take a long time, but that was quite good. Now, so that's done. In the data folder now, which is we were right there at where we had found mvs.ini. Now it has written some output files in data, into out. Okay, and we're going to be looking into here into this simplified folder where it has stored the same mesh as what's it created, and which is in this folder that we're looking at right now, but 10 times less resolution. So I think that's more friendly for my computer, and I certainly don't need that kind of resolution that it's created here for my simple sofa model in Blender. But inside this subdirectory, it has done a very cool file video, if my screen catcher will do it. So this is it's created this video, and you can reduce the calculation time, I guess, quite a lot by telling it not to do this. And you do that by editing, I suspect, an ini file, and there's a readme file that tells you what all the settings you can modify, and there are a bunch. But this is incredible. So you can see the high resolution that it's worked out on this sofa. And some other things. There's one that does stereo and all sorts. But we can ignore most of what's in here for right now. I don't even know everything that's in there. But if we go into this simplified here, here's mesh data. It's in two different forms. One is a PLY form, which is, I don't know, Stanford point something or another. And this will work, but my understanding, what I've been able to figure out, is the texturing is done by specifying vertex colors. And I believe you can import this file directly into Blender, and you will see a textured sofa, but it's not really a texture in that it's unwrapped and has a PNG file that's going to go with the UV coordinates. It's more vertex painted, which is fine, but it's not what I was used to, and so I was trying to get down to this where I've got a UV map and I've got a texture, and it's more what I'm used to working with. So I went down this road of using the other format that it makes, which is a VRML file or something, which is another file that Blender can understand. But you need to go through, or I found, you have to go through Meshlab first. So there's several versions of the WRL. They're all supporting different bits of this, I think, but I figured out the important one is this one here called mesh textured.wrl. So we need to go start Meshlab. So Meshlab's only going to convert the file we could do the mesh cleaning up and everything in here, but we're not going to. We're going to do that in Blender. So let me just pause this until I can find the file that I want to read in. Okay, so I'm just about to read that file into Meshlab. I went File, Import Mesh, and navigated to into that simplified subdirectory. Simplified 10 subdirectory, which stands for 10 times, by the way, and you can change that in that ini file. And I'm about to read this WRL file into it. You can see it's also could read that PLY if I wanted to. So here we go. Wait for it, and there it is. So we can see that it's upside down and whatnot, but that's okay. But there's the image or the mesh, and it's either textured or vertex painted. Doesn't matter at this point, because all I'm going to do now is go File, Export Mesh As, and save it as an OBJ file. Okay. Right, good. I'll call this sofa. Okay. Hit save, and it's going to come up with this screen here, which is kind of good because you're telling it to export the texture coordinates, and with these supporting images, and this is the stuff that's going to create the MTL file to go with the OBJ. So just say OK. All right, now we can actually close Meshlab, and oh, where did it put it? It probably put it way down in these directories. Okay, so there I've got the sofa textured OBJ file and the sofa MTL file. And the MTL file will be referencing, if we take a look at these, look, here it'll be referencing this PNG file which it created. So this is the kind of the unwrapped texture file, or the bitmap that's going to match up with all the UV coordinates that have been unwrapped. It looks crazy, but it does work. So now we can go to Blender. There was a step, someone said you had to edit the MTL file to put a KD map or something in there, but I found you didn't have to do that. If I just go to a new file here in Blender, it's 2.72b, and File, Import, Wavefront OBJ, and I'll pause it here. Okay, so I found it, and I was down so many subdirectories. So I'm going to just import this OBJ file, and I haven't touched any of these presets down here, but there they are. I will end up having to flip it once I'm in Blender, but I'll just go ahead and import the OBJ. And there it is. I'll get rid of the default cube. It's upside down. It's in solid mode here, but if I go to texture mode, you can see. Okay, let me pause it while I flip it around. Okay, and that's it. So I just flipped it around, set up the camera, and there is the model that we just built in about 15 minutes. And you can see it's not smoothed here. I suppose I could smooth it. Makes it a little bit nicer, but that's pretty good. And then there's some bits that need to be cleaned up, which I could have probably avoided if I'd read some of the README files and also taken a few more photos of this thing. It was just really quick. It was in terrible lighting conditions, and I didn't hit the back. I didn't take the back of it. So what I'll do in Blender, there's your mesh. We can remesh it if we want to. We can get rid of all these extraneous vertices and everything back here, clean all this up, flatten the bottom by scaling it, some selected vertices down there, but this is terrific. We got some of my other furniture as well going on, and I'm going to pause it just so I can figure out how to show this. Right. So over here in the materials, you can see there are three. One is these little camera icons, which are just part of the mesh. I'm not sure why those are there, but you can delete them. But on the texture, you can see here is the bitmap, and I believe if you look in here and in the data, you can see that there is a UV map here. And in fact, if you probably get in trouble here, but if you show in here UV image editor, and you go over here and you do that, and you select them all, here is the UV map that cmpmvs created when it output that thing. So there's the UV, and this is, even though this is a mess, this is more the way I'm used to working rather than with vertex colors. But the PLY file, when you bring it in, looks exactly the same. You don't have a UV map, but you have all the vertices painted. and I'm sure there's some advantages to that. Maybe it's easier to bake it, I don't know. But anyways, this is terrific. Pause it again. Okay, just some final notes. Yeah, I hadn't actually been able to render this thing, but it's rendering now. There's something I had to do, and I'm not sure why exactly, but there it is. First of all, when you're in textured mode, just when you're working here, under shading, it's set for multi-texture. And now, for some reason, GLSL doesn't work. It shows you this. And this looks exactly like the render problem I was having. I don't know if anything has anything to do with it, but so I leave this on multi-texture just for working with it like this. And if you go and render this thing now, even though we've got a UV map and we had that, we've got these textures and these materials, we've got 3 materials set up, and one of these has that map on it and some other set for UV. You see that the UV map is missing. These other texture or these other materials, I'm not sure what they are, but here's kind of what I did, which just looks like a sure thing. Go ahead and delete every one of these materials. Just delete them. So now you have no materials and no textures. Add one new material. Just leave it as the default. Go over to texture, get a new texture, leave it as image or movie. Now the this image is still in the cache in the system, so you can just select it from here. Don't worry about that one with the U on it. Just select that one and come down here to where on the mapping UV. And this is the existing UV map that has always been there, but just for some reason wasn't connected properly. So just select that. And now if you go to render, the render tab, and render it, it renders. So that's brilliant. Okay, so that's about all I have to say about this.